All right, Bees, let's talk about the recent Dolphins news the last couple of days. Jerome Baker, they cut ties with him. Christian Wilkins, looks like that Dolphins era is over. Let's start with Wilkins. It did kind of sound like there was some room for contract negotiations between the Dolphins and Wilkins to still take place and for potentially him to come back. But I feel like that's just the thing that you say in these situations. Was this the result that you saw coming when the Dolphins and Christian Wilkins didn't come to an agreement before last season?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's a possibility that something gets done, but usually when you get this deep into it and you're this close to, kind of seeing what's out there, the odds of saying, oh, like the offer that you actually have made me for the last 18 months or whatever is actually what I'm owed. I would be surprised if that's actually the outcome. My guess is he can find more money elsewhere. The question is, does he take some sort of mild hometown discount because of, no income tax in the state and, familiarity with the system and all that? Maybe, but it seems to me that Wilkins wants to get paid, right? He really wants to be one of those guys that is, if not resets the defensive tackle market, is in the top three. And I just don't see how the Dolphins can do that with their situation, with even still being $15 million over the cap. And that's not a lot, obviously, but all of these guys are going to have to pay down the road. I'm with you, Josh. I think if they were going to get this done, they would have gotten it done 9 to 12 months ago. And a part of me kind of believes that they did what they, I believe Chris Grier made what he thought was a true and fair offer. And I also think that, when Wilkins said no, they went on to plan B, and plan B was re-signing Zach Sealer. And, people were kind of like, oh, Grier said last week they have the space to franchise and they could have gotten it done. You think about the reality of doing that. I think Sealer's, his cap number this year is like $10.7 million. If they would have tagged Wilkins, you would have been paying your two defensive tackles like $33 million in 2024. You just cannot do that, particularly with a team with, a bunch of free agents still coming up the pike. Tua Tagovailoa on the 5th-year option, Tyreek Hill on that contract, Bradley Chubb making a ton of money. You just can't pay everyone. So, I mean, this is probably the logical outcome of when Wilkins said no back in training camp, whatever it was, and they pivoted to Sealer to make sure they lock up one of those two guys. This was probably the outcome that was almost inevitable at that point.
I think before last season, you could have made the argument that Wilkins is not a market resetting defensive tackle, that he is more of like that second tier of guys. But then with the season he had rushed, like that was the big thing. Could he rush the passer consistently? Could he get home? And he did. And he obviously had a career year. So he bet on himself, and obviously that got better. But now you're saying because of this one season, he's market resetting type of player? Because, I mean, I didn't think he was before last season, but I guess Channing, I mean, I know you want to jump in here.
No, I was going to say, I was just writing him down. Like, I watched Chris Jones. I watched, what's the Tennessee boy? Simmons, a monster. Quentin Williams in in New York, a monster. Even Aaron Donald, he's getting old, but he's like, Bees, is he on that level? To your point, Josh, is he a market resetting defensive tackle?
Well, I think we should probably put Aaron Donald in a stratosphere as all his own, because, I mean, that market is not going to be reset for a minute. What he's earning is so much more than that next tier. I think he's all by himself. And I don't think Wilkins would have reached that. But, I think this time last year, it would have been reasonable to pay him $18 to $20 million a year. Well, what's happened in the time since? Salary cap's got up 13%. And every single player, it's not like there's more players in the league, right? It's still the same number, 53 on the roster and whatever it is, a dozen on the practice squad that gets to split up that pie. So everyone's salary goes up. And so, 2021 all of a sudden is maybe 23, 24. And then you're getting into that Quentin Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Deron Payne range that you're talking about there, Channing. So, yeah, no, I don't think – I mean, I'm looking at the AAV for Aaron Donald. It's like 31 and change. I mean, you're not going to see that for Christian Wilkins, but you absolutely will see, to Josh's point, 25 plus because of the year he had and because the cap's gotten bigger.
Bees, as it pertains to Jerome Baker, I know that Drew Rosenhaus said that they tried to also work something out for him to come back, but at that price tag, it just seemed like, as with a lot of the other situations they have to deal with right now, they need to get not just younger at that position, but like they just can't afford that price tag for that player at this point. Is that just kind of what it boiled down to with Jerome Baker?
Yeah, I mean, right. I think they probably saw him as maybe like a $6 or $7 million a year guy, and not the $10 million he was going to earn this year. But again, what I was just mentioning, the entire pie has grown. I think I figured out there's like $1 billion with a B, $1 billion of available cap space league wide. And it's crazy the Dolphins are underwater. There are like 2 or 3 teams I think that are, and the Bills are the only team in a worse shape. But when you have $1 billion with a B, $1 billion available for spending over the next, whatever it is, 6 months, why, if you're a player, Baker, who's in his prime, who has played well, I mean, he's not a star, he's not the best off-ball linebacker in the league, but he's pretty good. Why would you take less when you know you could probably earn more, the same, if not more, elsewhere? And you only get so many cracks at it, right? And I understand the decision he made. I think that he wasn't going to take a complete lowball offer, and unless he's being unreasonable and he wanted, he's holding out over $100,000 or whatever. My guess is that's not the case. I get it. I totally get it. So the Dolphins have had to, and I think they will continue to have to, kind of shake these guys down, simply because this is all getting to a broader point, fellas. And the point is this: 2023 was their shot. Right, that was the last year that Tua was on a completely free, essentially, contract, and you had all these guys that you could load up with. Well, now they've made the decision to franchise that Tua is going to be their guy, and the $23 million I think he's owed this year is going to be the least he's going to accept going forward. I think they're going to work hard to get an extension done. But whatever that new, whatever that new benchmark is for him, $45, $50 million. We've talked about this on the year before, Josh. Whatever that ends up being, it's going to be way more than it was this year, and this year's way more than it was last. And so you have to make choices, and you can try to, hey, you love playing here, Jerome. Maybe we can work something out. But at some point, a player knows, Shannon, you know this well. You only have a finite amount of years where you can earn. And I don't think Jerome's in the stage of his career yet that he's going to quote unquote ring change or comfort level or whatever the case may be, and take a well below market value contract. And I think that's why he's going to go out there. And I heard Drew's comments about that earlier today on your airwaves about how, the Dolphins want all these guys back. And I totally get it. I'm sure they do want all those guys back, but they're not going to be able to afford it when those guys get to the market and see, again, $1 billion of cash floating around and they want their piece of it.